1910 to 1913, Assistant Secretary of the Navy, 1930 to 1920, Governor of the State of New York, 1928 to 1930, and then President, 1933 to 1945. While FDR was in office, other Roosevelts assumed minor offices. Theodore Roosevelt Jr., 1887 to 1944, was a member of the New York State Assembly from 1919 to 1921, then continued the virtual Roosevelt Navy monopoly as the Secretary of the Navy from 1921 to 1924, Governor of Puerto Rico from 1922 to 1932, thinking about the IRS and where was it formed, and Governor General of Philippines from 1932 to 1933. Nicholas Roosevelt was Vice Governor of the Philippines in 1930. Other Roosevelts have continued this political tradition since the New Deal era. An alliance of Wall Street and political office is implicit in this Roosevelt tradition. The policies implemented by the many Roosevelts have tended toward increased state intervention into business, desirable to some business elements, and therefore the Roosevelt search for political office can fairly be viewed as a self-seeking device. The euphemism of public service is a cover for utilizing the police power of the state for personal ends, a thesis we must investigate. If the Roosevelt tradition had been one of uncompromising laissez-faire of getting the state out of business rather than encouraging intervention into economic activities, then our assessment would necessarily be quite different. However, from at least Clinton Roosevelt in 1841 to FDR, the political power accumulated by the Roosevelt clan has been used on the side of regulating business in the interests of restricting competition, encouraging monopoly, and so bleeding the consumer in the interests of a financial elite. Further, we must consider the observation conveyed by Franklin D. Roosevelt to Edward House, Mandel House, remember that, right? And cited in the epigraph to this chapter that, quote, a financial element in the large centers has owned the government ever since the days of Andrew Jackson, end of quote. Consequently, it is pertinent to conclude this introductory chapter with the 1943 observations of William Allen White, an honest editor, if there ever was one, who made one of the best literary critiques on this financial establishment in the context of World War II. This, it should be noted, was after 10 years of FDR and at the peak of Roosevelt's political power. And here we go. And this can be found in 1,000 Americans by George Seldes, 1947, pages 149 to 150. And again, this is from William Allen White, and this will end this section of FDR's connections with Wall Street on both sides of his family, maternal, paternal. One cannot move about Washington without bumping into the fact that we are running two wars, a foreign war and a domestic one. The domestic war is the various war boards. Every great commodity industry in this country is organized nationally, and many of them, perhaps most of them, are parts of a great national organizations, cartels, agreements, which function on both sides of the battlefront. Here in Washington, every industry is interested in saving its own self. It wants to come out of the war with a whole hide and with its organization unimpaired, legally or illegally. One is surprised to find men representing great commodity trusts or agreements or syndicates planted in the various war boards. It is silly to say new dealers run this show. It's run largely by absentee owners of amalgamated industrial wealth, men who either directly or through their employers control small minority blocks, closely organized, that manipulate the physical plants of these trusts. For the most part, these managerial magnates are decent, patriotic Americans. They have great talents. If you touch them in 9 relations of life out of 10, they are kindly, courteous Christian gentlemen. But in the 10th relation, where it touches their own organization, they are stark mad, ruthless, unchecked by God or man, paranoiacs, in fact, as evil in their design as Hitler. Whoa. They are determined to come out of this war victorious for their own stockholders, which is not surprising. It is understandable also for Hitler to desire to come out of this war at any cost victorious for the German people. But this attitude of the men who control the great commodity industries and who propose to run them according to their own judgment and their own morals do not make a pretty picture for the welfare of the common man. Those international combinations of industrial capital are fierce troglodyte animals with tremendous power and no social brains. They hover like an old Silurian reptile about our decent, more or less Christian civilization, like great dragons in this modern day, when dragons are supposed to be dead. Whoa! Wow. All right, that ends that section. Book